All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our engineering webinar series. We hope you, your family, and your colleagues are all as safe and healthy as possible during these challenging times. My name is Chris Cogswell. I'm a customer consultant for the corporate Midwest and Southeastern United States for Elsevier Engineering. It's my pleasure today to introduce Carrie Berglund, my colleague at Elsevier, who will talk to us today about surviving the zombie apocalypse, a topic I'm sure at the top of mind for many of us today around this Halloween or this week around the Halloween season. Please write your questions in the question and answer queue, which we will then answer at the end of the session as time allows. And here, before we get started, I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you could all please answer, that would be of great help for our team. And answering already a question in the chat, is that the Rugrats house? This is actually the house from The Simpsons, which is my my Halloween costume this year is Homer Simpson. So figured we'd go with a little bit of fun here.
And to share, this is my home grandfather clock, which is not haunted, but I thought I would mention.
All right, Carrie. So it looks like from the poll, we have plenty of people. Everyone has heard of zombies. Some of us have zombies in our families, myself included, of course. And this should be a really great session. Thank you all so much for your participation in the poll here. We're going to give it a couple more seconds. And then, Carrie, you can go ahead and take it away.
Wonderful.
All right, so I'm going to end polling here. So, yep, looking good here. Most people say that they, of course, have heard of zombies, but are here to learn about the engineering solutions. So great. Thank you so much. All right, Carrie, go ahead.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and move that poll out of my way so we can get down to business. And of course, I want to mirror my colleagues' welcome and thank you for joining us on engineering your way through the zombie apocalypse. And needless to say, let's tell you a little bit about who I am and why I would ever think that this would be something that would be a good thing to do for my work life in presenting some of the products that I work with day in, day out. Well, my name is Carrie Berglund. My background is not engineering. I actually have a Bachelor of Arts in Music and Vocal Pedagogy, but I have worked with engineers and worked in engineering corporate environments my entire professional career. I come from New Hampshire and I went to the University of New Hampshire, which is go Wildcats, if you will. And indeed, there has been a day with my favorite local amusement venue with some family friends of mine that I have participated in a flash mob at the Faneuil Hall Marketplace as a dancing zombie. So this is where some of my root interest lies in the zombie lore. And without much further ado, what is our agenda for today's presentation? What isn't our agenda for today's presentation is probably more like it, but really what we're hoping to do is give you a little bit of a highlight of 3 of the products in the engineering portfolio here at Elsevier. That is in no particular order: Geofacets, Engineering Village, and Novel. And certainly, while there are many things to consider when the Walking Dead come knocking on your door, luckily the human race hasn't had this challenge put to the test quite yet. And no matter how challenging 2020 has been, we are indeed not facing the zombie apocalypse. So this session is going to be all about utilizing the tools of research and innovation and in different ways to search out the root research information or applicable information that you're looking for your projects day in and day out. And this can be from many different perspectives. So I thought it was important to let everyone know that the CDC is prepared. Indeed, if there is a zombie apocalypse, the CDC has a website up to make sure that you are also prepared for such a thing. It is a fun site. Really, it is put together to allow folks to understand how to get ready for emergency preparedness, of course. It looks like it first began as a tongue-in-cheek campaign to engage new audiences, but it has proven to be very effective. It started in the early 2000s and still perseveres through today. If you go to their blog, you definitely will learn a little bit about what people are saying here in 2020. I have to disagree with one of the important documents that you may want to have in your grab bag. I don't know that anyone's going to check my driver's license as I'm running from the zombie apocalypse, but you never know. I suppose it can't hurt to have an extra copy in that go bag. So the first question we have to ask, and this is an important one, right? Are you a good zombie or a bad zombie, aka Glenda the Good Witch from the Wizard of Oz? Certainly there is not a lack of examples in our media today. Certainly one of my favorites would be the Michael Jackson thriller Dancing Zombie. We have the Romero classic, which a lot of us know from 1968 movie, Night of the Living Dead. We do have what might be considered the creep show Decaying Mummy Zombie, Santa Clarita Diet, never had a chance, hysterical little series on Netflix. There are even zombies that can be acclimated back to a human form, as the BBC has taught us. And then of course, there are the World War Z zombies, which if we're going to go with those zombies in our scenario, I believe we should have Brad Pitt be part of the equation as well. For my purposes today, I'm going to assume that we are dealing with the ever popular Walking Dead, aka Walker, if you will. They have attributes that I feel are a bit more human, other than the thirst for really any flesh that happens to be living. They are not discriminating in that sense. They will bite whatever happens to move in their space. They're easy to stop in the sense that if the brain function stops, the walker stops. So that's all good stuff. Pretty easy to figure out. Don't necessarily always take you by surprise. You can stop them with some menial tools, if you will. We are also on season 10, by the way, and we have a lot of observation and trial and error to work with. So that is a nice thing for what we're going to research today. So let's talk about the engineer. Let's talk about the engineering skills that are necessary for the zombie apocalypse. Indeed, multidiscipline is, I believe, a key component of success in this space. You want an engineer that has full out expertise in any one of the examples that I've given in this slide. So agricultural engineering to mechanical to textile to environmental. We'd like a geologist because, you know, we've got the earth, we're hiding within the earth at this point, and we really need someone to give us an idea as to where some of the best places are in the world to avoid being eaten by zombies. I think that's a good key piece. You know, are we dealing with fast zombies, slow zombies, living conscious zombies, people that are just acting like zombies, you know, that rotting curse zombie moving into what we think could be the mummy, or are we dealing with, say, just a disembodied zombie hand? We really need an engineer to help us that can delve into all of these different areas to help us get through. So when it comes to zombies in engineering literature, now the truth is, if you are going to be literal in your search in any of the products here at Elsevier Engineering, you are going to get things that basically turn to cybersecurity, network security, malware, intrusion detection, security of data, drone-like processes that we perceive certainly as zombie-like, and the word zombie is utilized quite often in it. When it comes to looking in something like novel with a term like zombie, what we get are things about trends. So truth about driverless vehicles, sure, that could be considered a bit zombie-like. Don't do a zombie project management, have an end goal in mind, don't lumber through. And then certainly maybe some management skills are zombie-like. So there is, when you put the term zombie into something like novel, there are certainly some references that are helpful. So that being said, let's talk about one of the first things I think when the zombie apocalypse comes upon you that you want to consider. Are you going to fortify, or are you going to flee? Now, presumably, you are in your house when it happens, or you're walking on the sidewalk, and the first thing you run to, gosh darn it, your house, or a structure that you think is going to give you a little bit of safety from these walkers. So let's take a look in Novel at let's do a little demonstration and take a look at some of the resources that might be helpful when it comes to stress and strain. All right, so here we are in Novel, and I think I've already given away some of my search. But those that aren't familiar with Novel, what Novel does is it's a full text resource with many different publishers, some of your engineering manuals, your equations, your stress and strain calculations, ooh, little spoiler there, as well as graph plotters and other tools that an applied engineer would find useful. And frankly, just any researcher would find useful. So indeed, let's take a look at something like load-bearing walls. As you can see, I came prepared to this, but we're going to go ahead. Just retype that. There's a lot of good information on this. So over 180 different references to load-bearing wall, certainly a nice definition if you're looking for something like that. When it comes to books and text, it's not just books, it's conference proceedings, regulatory information, and sometimes, depending upon what you've searched, you'll find conference proceedings as well. But then if we're really wanting to really filter through without necessarily adding to our search, which we're perfectly capable of doing, maybe we're most interested in resources that have something about load-bearing walls and progressive collapse. Because truth be it, is that as the zombies are walking toward your habitat, they are going to load time and time again, one on top of each other, and eventually really put your load-bearing wall to the stress. So we certainly, that would be helpful to read up on within a resource like Novel. Now, another term, or, you know, I'm a bit of a mathematician, so I would really like to be able to have a tool that I could go ahead and calculate some of the load situations I may find myself into, and lots of suggestions coming from Novel. There are over 230 equations. There are 2 databases that are specific to materials that are derived with stress and strain. And then there are many graphs and tables, but it was actually an equation that I was looking for. And now that I'm thinking about it, I probably know what the name of it was. It was something like Young's modulus, something of that nature. Now, if I'm an engineer, I know exactly what I'm looking for, but indeed, I am your typical zombie apocalypse survivor, and I don't. So this is very helpful in the sense that we have stress and strain and Young's, and there is the equation that I was looking for, the modulus of elasticity, Young's modulus, and I can very quickly open up a Novel interactive equation to test out some of those calculations that I'm wanting to pursue in my preparedness for the zombie apocalypse. And that being said, you know, perhaps I have another scenario that I would like to consider. We're gonna go, apologies for the delay here. So we just talked about doors and walls and beams and pressure and stress and strain. So the next thing to consider is that if I'm wanting to flee, you know what, I'm out of here. What I have for my home is not going to do it for the zombie horde coming at me. Perhaps I want to flee somewhere fortified. And there is no better suggestion if you happen to live near the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado Springs. This seems to be the perfect locale. It is the NORAD, North American Air Defense Command. It is built to sustain any possible attack. I've done a little research on it within both geofacets and novel. There are many command and control centers and bunkers actually constructed below the surface within this complex. And it is really one of the perfect spots to flee to, should I be there, should I be in that region, and it's something that I can get to as I fight my way to search. So if I can't get to this Cheyenne Mountain Complex, let's consider something else. And why don't we go to something like geofacets and see what we can find. So now we'd like to find something with some similar attributes to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. And as you might imagine, that can be very broad. It can also be very specific. It happens to turn out that that complex is built within granite, but then as the structure goes below the mountain range itself, it has an adequate amount of sandstone and then a layer of rock beneath that that actually gives access to ancient water aquifers. So best of all worlds, right? A really hard shell on the top, a little bit soft to dig in deep, and then you've got a source for some water. But let's go ahead and do a quick search within the United States. And what I'm doing right now is I am doing a nice little polygon search over the US. I could have just jumped to the region, but it's a lot more fun to draw your way there. And what geofacets is, for those that aren't familiar, geofacets is a resource that is searchable on maps, figures, and tables. So this is the kind of resource that you might want to utilize if you are really searching for areas to dig, to go and search out, do a virtual field trip, reduce risk in success of whatever it is you're mining for or you're digging for. In particular, this product was built around with the oil and gas industry in mind originally. And go ahead and see what literature is out there. What is wonderful about this product is you have the maps, tables, and figures, but you also have the pictures, and then you also have the capability. It is a multi-publisher platform, of course, to go ahead and take a look at the full text at your leisure when you have found that perfect map for the region that you're studying on. So ultimately, lots of maps within the US. We'll zoom out a little bit. That was a little quicker than I anticipated. May have just broken the product. Just kidding. It's more my internet that may have just broken. So we'll do that again really quickly. A little bit more of a sloppy United States. And we'll just go ahead and do a bit of refinement on some terms. And what I would suggest is, of course, to go ahead and play with this product. It really is very in-depth. And if you are a geologist, certainly, or even not a geologist, I would say that you will find a lot of terms that are suggested that are very helpful in getting you to exactly what you want. Now, we just went ahead and we refined on granite, but I'm just going to quickly stroll through. One of the other pieces in here, we can search on a particular basin, we can search on a particular subject, we can go through, perhaps it's just maybe recent publications that were in maps and tables and figures we're most interested in. But what I really like are the author keywords. Those to me are really kind of a nice insight into where we want to go. And what I would probably suggest for this, as it's loading, would be to go into something like aquifers or hydrogeology, something of that nature. And we're going to give it just a minute to maybe give us all of the keywords. And I think we're going to be out of time, but we'll go ahead. This is something you could expand in all on its own. It could be its own its own webinar, but you get the picture. There are other places that one could research to, maybe it's not ready-made, but if you needed to dig your own bunker, if you will, there are plenty of ways to determine the best spot for that. Needless to say, we want it to be remote. We know that for sure. So let's go back to the presentation. So we've decided that we're going to flee to somewhere fortified, and we've made that determination. Now, the next piece is, so what do you wear when you're in the zombie apocalypse, the fictional zombie apocalypse, right? I mean, a suit of armor would be nice, but it's not really that practical. So perhaps it makes sense to go ahead and take a look at something like an engineering village. And do a search on materials. So, or maybe perhaps something that is going to be useful. So something like spider silk. Is a really nice material that will, it's stronger than you think. What has been going on with some of the research within that particular material? So we've put that into Engineering Village. We're utilizing Compendex, Inspec, Chemica, the patents. There's 109 records, particularly on this search. We could refine it by physical property here if we'd like to really get to that exact weight that would be handy to create. Some other things to look, maybe we want to add a search field and add a term like strength. And this should increase or decrease a little bit, actually. So we want both. So we don't just want ore, we want synthetic spider silk and strength. But perhaps I would like to go ahead and get a little bit more in my field to sort through, and I can do that just by adding the term strength and spider silk. It's those two to decipher through might be a little bit more all-encompassing than my first search. But again, Engineering Village, for those that don't know, is a resource that it's an abstract and index resource that really opens you up to the entire world of engineering publication. The search itself is built toward an engineering language. So what it's going to focus on are engineering terms, as well as searching out materials, more specifics on materials. And then of course we have that capability to do the numerical index searching within some of the databases here. And the village is where the platforms live, for those that aren't familiar. So all of these platforms are specialized. A lot of folks, when you hear them talk about engineering village, they're actually kind of talking about Compendex a lot of the time. That is kind of our grandmother of databases, if you will, on the platform. But I don't mean to say grandmother that it's only got old information in it. It's actually got a lot of great, it is updated on a weekly basis and is growing from year to year with different capabilities. So definitely something to consider, especially when you're fighting the zombie apocalypse. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And let's think about what else we might need to consider. So air, water, energy, things of that nature are going to be very, very important. So let's talk about other things we might want to research on. Can we be sure this is something we can filter out of our air supply? Can we create a device to deploy a sanitizer? Am I going to really be able to outrun the zombies? And then ultimately, what we really need when it comes to the zombie apocalypse is, no, not the cure, but perhaps a vaccine. So what I'm going to draw you to now is just very quickly, it is not the zombie apocalypse, but it is a very serious subject with the COVID-19 response. Certainly, if you're going to search something like vaccine within novel, you're going to spell it right first. but then you're going to search that out. And there is a lot of great information in this. Of course, there's a lot of great information about this in Engineering Village as well, which you can bump back and forth to these panels simultaneously. But let's go ahead and search out COVID. And this is something I did want to bring up on a serious note, because this is a resource within our engineering portfolio that you should feel free to share with family and friends, even if they don't have access to Novel as a resource, as a platform. This is available, and it is something that we want to share with everybody out there in the world to use as they see fit and share. So with that, I am just going to say thank you so much for joining me today for engineering our way through the zombie apocalypse. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Chris Cogswell, to take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Carrie. We're going to move on to some questions here. So one question actually that I think is actually pretty cool is, so if we have zombies, coming up against a wall and stuff, we're using these old facilities to live in, what about like aging facilities, right? Or zombie spit causing corrosion? What kind of content can we look for there? What tools do you suggest?
You know, I'm thinking that could be a good half-hour session all in its own. So indeed, you're right, Chris. There would be probably some very unique kinds of corrosion that could occur in the zombie apocalypse, because one thing that we have learned from, if you say the Walking Dead, is that they do start to deteriorate. You know, they'll persevere through all kinds of different materials, but at one point there is no longer a zombie, and they are affecting the environment and the materials that the let's call it zombie goo is lying on. So yes, I think there would be lots of corrosion to consider, and we do have a very nice offering in that space. And in fact, I'll plug just a moment, we have a new offering coming in 2020 that is an enhancement of our corrosion content that we already have available in Novel. So stay tuned for that one, folks.
Nice. Okay. And then another one here too. One question here. So biomedical or technical material in Novel, like bandages, wound healing, nanomaterials, those kinds of things. Is that kind of content on there? What do we think?
It is. So there is actually a really strong offering when it comes to biomedical engineering, and it is rapidly building. I'm sure many of you out there that are supporting some of your students, or you have friends that specialize in the biomedical engineering space. And indeed, there is some of that information in both Novel and Engineering Village. And what I love about it being available in Engineering Village as well, in that kind of resource, is we're really kind of seeing as new materials are being created, how it's building. So yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, great. So it looks like that's going to be all the time we have for questions. I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar session. I hope it was a lot of fun. We'll be holding these each Thursday at this time, although our next session is going to be titled The Circular Economy with Evie and Novel, and that'll be on November 12th of 2020. If you'd like information or an invitation to that session, please feel free to reach out to your customer consultant, or if you don't know who your Elsevier contact is, then please send me an email at c.cogswell@elsevier.com. We're also going to go ahead and launch a poll here at the very end. If you could please give us some info there, that would be a lot of help to us. And I've included my email in the chat as well if you would like to give any comments or suggestions for future topics, or if you have any questions. Thank you again so much. Thank you for your participation, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, folks.